So what political bias in media looks like in practice is generally not that kind of deliberate deception. It's more like Fox News just declining to report embarrassing stories about Republicans, and MSNBC doing the same for Democrats. A politically biased reporter won't lie to you. She'll merely tell you to look at this instead of that. And here's the thing, maybe she's right about where you should look. Maybe this really will give you a better understanding of reality than that. Or maybe she's wrong. Maybe her reporting is misdirection. It's a judgment call, and journalists' political views inevitably influence our judgment about political topics. That's not a deliberate deception, though. It's typically quite sincere. Well-intended, reasonable people can honestly disagree about what's important, what deserves to be covered. Granted, sometimes it's hard to believe that someone else's view of what's important is sincere. I get that. Media choices can be baffling sometimes, so baffling that you start to think it has to be deliberately misleading. But one of the really valuable things about being kind of an ideological oddball in journalism, in both my faith and my politics, is that it's put me in close working relationships with people who disagree with me on just about everything and in every direction. And after a decade of doing this, I can honestly tell you the disagreement is sincere. Sometimes it still baffles me to find out what colleagues truly believe, but they do believe it. And observing that firsthand has made me practice a lot more grace about coverage choices I disagree with, which is not to say I never have a more cynical assessment, like how I just said Fox is generally saving face for Republicans and MSNBC for Democrats. It also doesn't mean I forget that journalists have these normal human foibles we've already touched on. And a big one for this discussion is unwillingness to admit past judgment calls were wrong, which is a problem I think is exacerbated by the way the internet preserves all our work forever. People like having a consistent record, so there's a real temptation to double down, even though you're starting to realize you made a mistake. And that's not okay, obviously, but it's not unique to journalists either. Now, those judgment calls influence what news we receive, as well as its framing and commentary. It's not nothing, but focusing so much on political bias, which we know from polling is what Americans point to when they think about problems with the media, it makes us miss other, and I think actually more important, explanations for what feels wrong with the news.